All right, hello, welcome back. In today's episode with Camille, we're going to discuss more about, I think, electric cars in general. Um, Wait, let me see if my audio. I have to lower the audio a bit. Let's go there. Okay. All right. So now this could work for any electric car, of course, but I think about the reliability, the endurance, and just about the reviews of new technology, right? Wait, why did I just turned my ISO a little higher on accident? Okay, so I think that's like the biggest qualms that we arrive at with electric cars in general. Now, I like to preface this. I am a male in America. Um, so I think it'd be much easier for my demographic versus others. Of course, I don't know. You'll. I will speak about some of my experiences as I talk about this, but this is about my EV journey, driving from the DC metro area, driving down south, all the way down to the Everglades, all on free electricity, front and back. The only time, well, I like to preface this too again, I only charged at Miami because kind of like a see how far I've gone from the on the map. It showed that the last time I ever used a supercharger was out in Virginia, and then and then see and then seeing the next charger thing on my, because you can actually check when you charge your car, all that stats and stuff, and then I see that like, oh, he went from Virginia all the way in Florida and Miami, and I thought that was funny to me at least, because it's just like I like to create and anomalies in data sets. I think that's just like one of those random fun things. I don't know. Just like fun things that I don't know why I just like not skewing the data, but just the representation of a data point and that is gathered in that those data sets. They're going to be like, huh, is this a real data point or is this a fake data point? But of course it's real because I paid money. I think I only charged it like I think up to 50% just for the sake of it. But yeah, I will get into those stories when the time comes. But we are going to do part one, and we're going to review and do a kind of like, I guess this is my journey and how I was able to do so. Because I think a lot of people, when they, like I said before, when they get inside an EV, their first impressions, their first issues is that, oh, what's this and that, and what's happening here and there, and who am I think there's just like a huge issue when it comes to, it's because such new technology, they a lot of people just don't know how to grasp the situation. Maybe they're unfamiliar with their surroundings, or they're just not as equipped to adapt to new technologies. And that is of course scary, because just imagine when humans first learned about planting, like planting foods, right? Now we are less equipped about the the perils of hunting all day. We didn't have to hunt and travel and traverse throughout the plains to the snows to the mountainside, and we didn't have to fish that much anymore. We still did it, of course, but I think that is the hardest aspect, is change. And a lot of people, they are scared of change. I tell you that. Everyone likes a routine, because there's safety in routine, right? But without changes and without adaptations, without all these necessary things, we as a species, organisms, would just die. The only thing stagnant in life is death. That is, if so, I think a lot of us, we need to challenge our understanding about how to carry on with life, and of course to its full extent, most morale and most ethical way. And how do we do this? One of the ways is adapting and adopting an electric car. Now, I will say this, viewer discretion advised. It, it is a perilous journey on my way, and I'm only going to take note and show off the most interesting points. So, as we know, Virginia. So I remember I started off in Reston, Virginia, and then I went all the way down towards one free charger spot. This is, by the way, this is all on free electricity. There's like a few charger spots along Virginia, so some up the mountain, some in resorts and stuff. But and then there was one at a because it was during the winter time. It was during the month of Ramadan, so I was fasting, and I took off from work for the whole month, and I was just ecstatic because I was like, okay, let's just see how far I can go. The test of, I'm not a very religious person, but I was trying to test my willpower about fasting. In Islam, you not to get really into it, but you fast because of all these reasons. It's just part of the journey as a Muslim person. And luckily, we live in such a technology driven world that we can do this easily now. We got it on our phones, the timings, etc. We just go outside and see the sunlight. And the I think the most difficult aspect, like I said before, here's a picture of me camping on the first night when I broke fast. Out there on the parking lot of a mountainside. Luckily, there's like nobody there, so nothing to really worry about, right? But yeah. So the most exciting part, I mean, a lot of stuff is exciting, but the most exciting part is when I went to North Carolina. So for Virginia and North Carolina, there's a border. So I went up the mountains, and out of all 4 days that I traveled in North Carolina, it snowed for 3 of those days. I was talking to one friend, an online video game friend, and he was telling me, yeah, it snowed in North Carolina. It never snowed, and I told him, oh, I was there in the mountains, camping and such, and just taking photos and just relinquishing myself to the nature and to the wild. And I was just camping out and about, enjoying what the world offers. So, as you can see, I am driving. I just do slow snippets of it. Nothing too big. But I had this recording. I was like recording 24/7. I would say. I only recorded like 20 and 30p because yeah, it's just a lot of footage. And even though I got my new 1920 gigabyte card, it's not enough storage. 2 terabytes is not enough. Like, let's be real. But yeah, this is the most exciting one because I was out and I did my star night lapse photo. This is I can show off a bit, but this was part of the edit. Did I make it intentionally very blue? Yes, because I was trying to make. I do have the original, of course, but yeah, I made it so it looks like it's just silhouettes of trees and then through the night sky, and I made it very, very blue because it was very extremely blue. I just exaggerated a bit. um, a bit more. But yeah, I did post the star laps, of course, with a bit of overlays. But yeah, every time I turn on the MacBook and I see these stars, and I see it play out for about 15 minutes or so. This is about a 13-minute star lapse. So it was literally from sunset to sunrise. And I actually, so to get this shot, I was pointing my camera towards the rear panel right here. And I think, oh yeah, it was on this side. Because I remember I put down my seat so I can sleep in my trunk, because I camped for 3 nights, and luckily, it's crazy because only one of those nights had good star lapse weather. So I don't know. So a lot of if it was snowy and cloudy the entire time, I wouldn't have not gotten this shot, and it's just luck on your side, really. But yeah, in order to have the shot going, I had the power bank. I had the car I actually had the car off because it was so cold. But I had it like no camera off, like no camera on off. Um, because I was up in the mountains, and the next place that I could go for free charging was in the casino. Oh yeah, I would also like to say that I did this because can I do it? That was the biggest thing, is whether or not am I able to do this? And if I'm able to do this, it gives no excuse for people who own an EV or wanting to own an EV. Because if a guy can do this, of course, at the cost of it, a bit of time, um, I was able to traverse and go through North Carolina up the mountain. Though I would argue it might be the second worst free chargers, just because it's all mountains. But I went through North Carolina. I went all the way, from Georgia, Florida. Um, I don't know. I forgot what was in between Tennessee and all that kind of stuff. All those states in between. So once I got to my spot, I set up. That was the first things I did. I took a shot of myself, selfie up the mirror above my car, just because it was a cool shot and the weather was like, if you go to places where there's less light pollution and there's just less pollution, I want to say, like, the sun treats it differently. We live in atmospheres, and it's just like segments. So some atmospheres might be more polluted than others, so you get more chemicals, you get more grayness, nitrogen, hydrogen. I don't know what's in the air. It's all those things in the air that separates the atmosphere. But because the atmosphere is more, it's not that it's not there. These things aren't there. But when you have exhaust fumes, when you have all these things, for example, the sum of things is more than just its parts. That's one of my favorite quotes about telling people and teaching people about how the natural world operates. Because when you combust a piece of wood, it burns cleanly in the sense that it is a true burn. When you burn some gasoline versus like raw petroleum, when you burn raw petroleum, it's just the same thing as burning candle wax or campfire woods, where it will extinguish itself and then the carbon vaporizes and becomes smoke. But for gasoline, there might be issues, right? Because it's just not correct in the way that it's supposed to burn. Because when you, it's like one of those hard concepts. Just know that the light passes through better. So if you want to shoot better lighting, you got to go to a place where there's the least amount of pollution, so that the atmosphere isn't as tainted. Because as we know, yes, there's approved limits with planes, but we all know they don't run on water. So when you burn those jet fuels, it's going to cause residue and it's going to stay in the air. Who knows how long it stays? But as we can see from the COVID era, uh, a lot of pollution was dropped, and sometimes it's stagnant and then it piles on. So the issues piled on, but when there was less people, more of it to disperse into the air. But yeah, that is, I would say, but that is like a very environmental thing, that aspect about taking photos. So that's why if you go up the mountains, the light is brighter and better, but then you might not have the longer form of light, of the UV ray. Um, yeah, it's quite exhausting to explain it, but I hope you understand my gist of it. Anyway, we'll go back to the video. So this is me preparing myself. I cleaned up the area because there's a little bit of a, I guess this is where people hung out, because as you can see, there's a little graffiti on the way there through a tunnel. And then, oh yeah, remind you that there was a bad North Carolina storm that I want to briefly talk about in a second as well. But because of that whole storm, a lot of the portions of the Blue Ridge Mountains was actually closed. So yeah, I don't know. You have to, I guess, explore a little bit. I don't know. I think I was just lucky because I just, sometimes you have this innate feeling, and I just followed my gut of where I camped. And yeah, nothing, you know, whatever. It was just cold, and I was hungry because I was eating a bunch of Cliff Bars and making, just veggies, because I bought some veggies, but I just heated it up. Yeah, it was a whole thing, that's for sure. But yeah, you can see me prepare my campsite. I dug a little hole. I had my campfire thing. I do a lot of, whenever I never buy firewood. I just scavenge for it and use whatever is around me. I know, right? But it's just the fun aspect about uh, burning wood. And also, when you burn wood, you should always burn it locally, because that's just how, within the vicinity. I don't know what an acceptable vicinity would be, but at least with the same trees, the same tree types. But yeah, I dug a bit. I had no shovel, of course, but I dug with my hands. Uh, and whatever leaf litter I found and all that stuff, I just threw in the pot. And you can't really see in this video, but there is an exit hole for the air to pass through, because I just needed it to be the most efficient, because it was windy. I tell you what, when you're up in the mountains, it gets so windy so fast. So I had to devise a way, and the only way is that I dig a hole. There's a hole so that the wind can still pass through it, in both directions, so in and out. Um, this is just fire building. This is nothing to do with electric cars and stuff. But yeah, I just kept looking and I was like, wow, this is such a beautiful spot, and I thought it was amazing. Um, but yeah, and I am a very outdoorsy kind of guy. I know I drive a Tesla, but I don't know. I can make fire in the rain. I'm that type of guy. I'm that guy. But yeah. So it. I think this part, just reflecting upon it, was really, really uh, powerful to learn about how I am equipped with that. You also don't see it as well, but I also use my pestle and mortar for my wood. I think a lot of people don't know this, but you should use pestle and mortar to beat up. And you got to use a decent one. You can't use that medicinal crap, the one they sell at the store. You got to get that stone version, because we're back in the Stone Ages. We are whacking that tree bark off and getting that pure wood to make splinters. And then, yeah. And just the whole time, I was just like amazed at how nature. I don't really look as aesthetic because you're getting just the entire raw footage of me. But yeah, I do point at right now. I am pointing at the horizon, and yeah, as you can see, my car's roof is reflecting purple because that's just how these. I mean, of course, these are like UV protecting, etc., all that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, and yeah, this is about a 30-minute video. Okay, so this is my part of the time now to discuss about just ongoing issues. Was I able to take a photo or video of it? No, unfortunately. But I do know that during that whole storm, there was a whole flooding and such. And you might be thinking, wait, why is there a flooding in North Carolina? They got mountains, it should flow into the streams. But as I further go into the Cove Point, or something similar name like that, there was like companies and whatever, and Big Bird, um, that exploit the mountain resources. We all know that mountains took eons, billions of years to create. That's why the Appalachian Mountains are such a sought after mountainside, because it's like a really, really old mountain, that's squished and all that kind of stuff. So it's like that's why you can find like shells, like seashells and stuff, in parts of the Blue Ridge Mountains. And it's like partly a rainforest, but it's not really. It's difficult to explain. But it's one of those biomes. It's one of those biomes in our world that is very, very unique and is very, very long. Right? It stretches from, I think, like southern Georgia or Alabama. I don't know, but it goes all the way up to Canada, up to Nova Scotia, that area. So it is like, to me, I wouldn't classify countries like that, because I would classify it as based off of topological reasons, and geology stuff. But due to politics, everyone knows it goes all the way up to Nova Scotia, Canada, and then all the way down to like Alabama, Georgia. And we all know that mountains, uh, quick lesson about how mountains work is that when the air passes, because of, you got your geomagnetic stuff from the sun rays, and then what heats up must come down. So then, because we have water, that's what makes Earth the perfect planet, right in the middle. The Goldilocks theory of things is that when the sun heats up stuff, and then the water goes up, and then condensation, rain happens, all that fun stuff. So when you destroy a mountainside, which what I saw on the sides in some parts, I think the most affected part that I saw was that area too. That's the craziest part. Is like that North Point or Point Cove. I forgot the exact name of it, but on that side, it looked. None it looked like there was drilling in just a defacing of a mountainside. So they literally were digging in the mountain. And then I thought to myself, wait, they're not even boring a tunnel. They're just literally just digging out the rocks to, I assume, because it's a mountain rock, very, very nice rock, very durable, I guess. You could use it for a home that would, eventually become abandoned. Because I do notice that, yeah, about North Carolina, is that there are a lot of abandoned parts, because it is a tourism section, right? No one's going to go to North Carolina unless they're going to go skiing. And what's funny enough, the only parts of town, I did get free charging from the area, but I noticed that the only thing that was up and running was the ski town area, so the ski lodge area. And I don't know what they were doing with the digging of the mountains, but that part where the mountain was dug up, the uh, it was just very, very unsettling, because Because then I saw at the bottom of it there was a bunch of water, and I was like, oh, that just makes sense. That because when you dig away at the mountainside, you disrupt this whole flow. So then, yes, we can have it dug out, but usually over time, it takes thousands of years for things to erode. So when a rock erodes, it doesn't happen in a day. Now, when it happens very quickly, right, the scale of magnitude, right, the Earth and those mountains have been here for millions of years now. I don't know the exact numbers, right? Don't quote me on that. But if you were to take a percentage of that rock, and let's say, I don't know, you deface just like a 1% of that rock area, right, as in volume, you then disperse that volumes to its about degree in magnitude. I don't, because I don't, it's like if you were to have a cake and you use two different sugars, right? You have the powdered sugar and then you have the regular cane sugar. Now let's say you add in granular sugar. Granular sugar is very fine, so you might have little bits of it. Maybe you use it as the topping so you can have a crust of the sugar. But if you were to take it off, you just take off the texture of the cake. Or maybe it might be easier to visualize this with a muffin. So when the muffin is glazed with a sugar topping, you can feel the sugar granule textures of the crystals. You might even taste it inside the cupcake itself because it hasn't fully dissolved. But that's what makes that's what makes that muffin taste really good. Is that you taste those little parts of the sugar bits, and it's like ooh, a little sugar snack, and it brings in the texture of a very soft muffin, and then it brings about it. And then maybe use the powdered sugar because it just coats your tongue to be this nice smooth texture. It just depends on. But anyway, when you take away that powder from the muffin, suddenly it doesn't have a soft top anymore. Okay. Now you take away the granular sugar. Okay, you're just left with the cane sugar. You might have a cupcake or a muffin or a cake that tastes fine as is, but you then change the entire baking structure. So maybe you bake less, maybe you bake longer, depending on all these things. Because I assume if you add more things, you might bake it for less time, or vice versa, you bake it for more time. Not a cooking expert, but I am trying to deeply explain how the concoctions, the primordial soup, the how we got here and how the earth came about, how these Appalachian Mountains became to what they are today. Uh, when you deface part of the mountain, you're going to be given results of likelihood. And let's say, because I remember the first time I ever was up in the West Virginia mountains, there's so much snow taller than the highway signs. You could say at least 3 stories or 4 stories tall of just snow. That's there because it's been there for a while, and that's how if you live up there, that's just what people have to face with when you live in those harsh conditions. Now, if you make a sudden thing like defacing a mountain, now where does the water go? Right? It flooded. I remember it flooded like a few plants. Like one of them was like Baxter Plant. That's like a medical facility for liquids, solutions that they use. Those IV bags and stuff like that for hospitals, and they make like 90% of America's supply. So at least for the East Coast, and you get, and then what happens is that everyone loses their homes, places destroyed. It was like, I know that these places were already abandoned, but through natural disaster, it's like what happened to Louisiana with the hurricane Katrina and stuff. A lot of it hasn't returned. It's just abandoned lands now, and that is just what is. You took away more than just property. You took away the lives of people, and I think one of the things that I just noticed is that, yeah, that's now, am I to say X, Y, and Z? See, that's the thing that annoyed me is that I couldn't stop to take photos and video because there was just trucks along the side. It just made it. They made it so, and I'm not going to. And the worst part is that with North Carolina, a lot of it is actually only traversable by car. So you couldn't even. You could technically hitchhike up, but I'm not going to hitchhike up like 10, 15 miles because it's very, it says 15 miles or whatever. It might only be 3 miles, but it might actually be 15 miles plus more. And then also, like I said before, the Blue Ridge Mountain parts for the Parkway and such was unable to drive and unable to actually enter. So that's kind of what was upsetting. I could only just tell you this and that. But I think that's just what I've gathered upon in terms of information. And I think it's just unfortunate that it came to be like that. I know I did go off topic about EVs, but I think if you're an EV person, you are more concerned a little bit about how we consume in the world. And what's crazy is that I was like looking at those trucks and I was like they only because also it's a mountain. So it takes a lot. And I don't they were not using heavy machinery. I assume they were just using explosives. Because I noticed that another site dig site or whatever, they were just using explosives as I saw. It was just not those sites where it's just a bunch of rocks and then it's like you see all the rocks on the way there. Tennessee, I think, was the worst one that I saw. Very, very unfortunate. But because that's just how it be, right? It's like the balance with economy and stuff, because it's like but you see that there's still abandoned homes and properties. So it's like, yeah, once the home becomes a property in terms of monetary value, we then reduce the idea about what homes are. Homes are made to be lived in. Cars are made to be driven, and the land we live on was made to be lived upon or to use. And yeah, I think just someone, even though I'm just a little person in this huge world, I think if there's more consideration about this, and I will discuss about my EV journey and what I went through, because the perils of just living, I think, within America, and just this is just the environmental part. So, like I said before, it just made me upset because I'm just a traveler, but I could see that, yeah, this is not gonna work out in like 15, 10 years from now. I can already foresee that there's gonna be a lot more floodings there, because again, you're taking away the dirt, the things that trap the water, right? The things that we don't see, Uh, it's like when you build a dam, a man-made dam, it actually might cause more harm later down the line than first, because a lot of the times they built a lot of infrastructure to, impede the progression for other peoples that the government didn't want to have a leg up. It's like I don't use, like, for example, I don't use toilet paper except when I'm in public areas where toilet paper might be the only option. But I wash myself after I use the toilet. So, you talking to someone with my lifestyle, they will never buy toilet paper again, right? So, you literally kill the entire market for myself. Oh, this is when my car roof gets wet. But I think, I think that's just one of the unfortunate parts about how economies work, because there's not, at a certain point you only have so much rock, and what's left? You're gonna be flatlands, huh? You're gonna have no more trees, huh? What's gonna happen then, huh? And you might be thinking, oh, there's never gonna be. Well, like I said before, trees are, I don't know what's in the dirt, but it just seems that trees are more falling on its own, and you can't even. The worst part is that when trees fall on their own, you can't even use that tree other than firewood and wood chips, because it's already like worthless material in a sense. But yeah, I think that's just my 2 cents about a little bit. And then during my EV journey, I did go on a bit of a hike a little bit, but it's just me looking at the type of plants there are in the cold. But yeah, I did notice that this area, it's crazy because this area is actually way more maintained than the wealthier neighborhoods that I've hiked through. Um, like, of course, I see deadfall, but at least it was down, not left up. Because when a tree is left up, it's still absorbing the resources for surrounding trees and such that. But yeah, uh, again, I know that I'm just one person, but when you notice these things, maybe you have to discuss a bit. And this is, like I said, this is just part of my EV electric car journey. And like I said, this is all on free electricity. So, um, from my car does about 200 miles per full battery. Uh, so, and the worst part about North Carolina is that when you go up, it consumes a lot, but then what comes up must come down. So when I went down the mountain, I did absorb a bit more energy. But luckily this a ski lodge had free charging, and I'll show a photo right there, ski lodge, charging station. And yeah, and when you're I talked to a few people too, and I was just telling them, oh yeah, I'm just seeing how far I can go on a free electricity. And I would say, at least in North Carolina, one of the worst parts to have an electric car. So let's say you live in North Carolina. Should you purchase an EV? Not at all. It is just too dangerous. And I did this during the winter months. So it is just dangerous, as in, like, it is very, very difficult. But if you go to casinos, for example, they have free electric charging. So, because they want you to gamble. I don't gamble, but walked through it and stuff. And I was also fasting, so it was just, I don't know. I couldn't even eat there, but I did enjoy my time staying in that area for free electric charging. And also the hotels are like hella cheap. It's like, I think it was like $30 hotels. But again, that's because they want you to gamble at the casino. But yeah. Um, but yeah, for your free electric journey for you and yourself, North Carolina is not the place for free electric charging. But they did have chargers. Don't get me wrong. It's just that if you want to have a free electric car journey, it is not as good. So I would obviously not put your hope into just purchasing an EV to have, oh, I can get free electric charging. Well, North Carolina, not so much. But we do. Uh, so yeah, like I said, the best part is that on this journey that I will take you with on these long-winded uh, form of content is that I hope you took a little bit of the understanding of my perspective and and how we can just create little things in our lives so that we consume more consciously, because a lot of people don't want to face the truth and the noise and the sound of the world, but we need to do I assume that's just my perspective, what's best for everyone, uh, and it's just little things, right? um, but yeah, but I'm on the fringe. I'm what you call on the fringe of life. So I can restrain myself very, very deeply. And with that, thank you for watching. I will make a part 2 of the next place where I go to, which is Georgia. I think I'm only going to do 3 parts or 4 parts. I think Florida will take 2 parts because Florida is such a big state. On the map, it doesn't look like a big state, but it is. This is about 7,000 miles, 7,000 miles of a journey, right? But only because I did make a lot of frequent random stops, and I did take some photos of things, and I did uh, stuff to so I can enjoy my journey, right? Uh, but yeah, the next one should be another part. So I did it with Georgia. For part 2, I think part 3 and part 4 will be two. Like I said, 2 Florida spots. But this is like this is about a year ago as well, because I didn't want to release this right away because I just had so much footage and so much. I'm just trying to distinguish what what I should share and what I shouldn't share of what photos I took, because like I said, I'll do a little quick clip of the Starry Night. That one I think is my favorite one, and the original unedited version is, I guess, for my keepsake, and I guess if you for people who want to pay for stock footage. But yeah, Camille out.